This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We are doing another episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast, and Carol, you have come up with a topic of decluttering. And this is the spiritual and mental transformation decluttering, I think is what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. And I'm not sure that it even sounds difficult at first. I mean, I don't know that it sounds very easy. I thought about it because during I guess it's spring cleaning, you do a lot of things, getting rid of stuff. And then sometimes in August, there's flea markets and yard sales and all that. You're getting rid of stuff. And I make this claim that I'm going to do this every year. I participate every year, and I end up bringing the same stuff back in the house. And so,
Is it because nobody else wants it, or because you decided you think it's just a precious treasure?
Yeah, and that's the decluttering part. I have a large room that I designed for my work area. So there's the recording area, there's the work area, then there's the worship space on the other side. And then there's another area with stuff in it. And I thought, okay, this was a dream spot when I first created it 7 years ago. I mean, it was an absolute dream. My husband was hanging out in it, and I didn't have to put him out because this is not your space.
I got work to do here.
Yeah. And so now I'm looking at it thinking, what happened? What happened to my space? And I go to touch something to get rid of it. And I can't, I go through this whole thing. Well, I can't. And I end up at the end of hours with the same stuff I had to begin with. And I started to think about spiritual growth, spiritual evolution, and all of that. And things have to go. Some things need to be replaced, fixed, or whatever. They have a place, like prayer. You do a little something with it. But there are other things that you really need to let go of. And it's hard to do that because they represent more than just what you may have purchased it for. Like I have some sneakers that are fabulous sneakers. These things they're covered with rhinestones every inch. Mm-hmm. And I cannot tell you the pain inflicted upon me when I wear those sneakers. They hurt.
Oh, yeah, because rhinestones on the one side, they look really blingy. On the other side, they got those little studs that are holding them onto the sneakers.
And I think it's one size, and all the embellishments, I think, might take 2 sizes away from the shoe. And I want to get rid of, but I can't because of how I got them. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'm holding that, and I'm just using that as an example. There are so many things that we hold on to that have sentimental value. It might be somebody gave it to them, or you remember what you felt like when you bought it. Mm-hmm. All of that has to be examined. It takes time. Time is passing. Growth is important. We need to grow. But you know what I mean? You're in this place of, it's hard because it takes a lot to grow. And one of those things I thought was decluttering the stuff that we came into the world, we were given. So there's a lot of that's sentimental. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always make sense, but mom taught us this, grandmom taught us that. And how do I manage all of that and not feel guilty about getting rid of it like some things, just as a little joke, I'll take a picture of it and I'll let it go. Okay, so now I got the picture. I don't have to keep it.
Right.
But with our spiritual growth, you can't always just take a picture. And it's making decisions that are important to your growth. Does it mean more to let it go or to hold on to it? That's not always that easy,
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. We're on a spiritual path, and as we move along our spiritual path, we're always right now in the present moment. This is where we are in our spiritual evolution and development, and all the steps that have led to this point along the path have been important. Now, sometimes we look back over our shoulder and it's like, this is the circuitous path. I've been walking in circles for 47 years or something like that before I finally headed off in a direction that I consider to be the right direction now. So we can look back on that and judge it and think that it has been unhelpful or unnecessary or a distraction or, fill in whatever mean thing you want to say about yourself. But it's still our path. Those are still the steps that have brought us here. And as such, they're very valuable. Sometimes those have been joyous experiences of transformation, and sometimes they've been calamities. And sometimes we thought they were calamities, and it turned out that they were the most important thing that ever happened to us. And we might not have known at the time. But that's still our path. And it's very natural to say, those are the steps on my path that have brought me to this present moment. So I want to honor them and respect them. And, I've got mementos and tchotchkes from along the way, so we should keep those and honor those as well. And on the one hand, I completely understand, and I have my share of altar spaces in my house where I have spiritual clutter. And I ran a teen group for 10 years, and we had a tendency when we got together to do experiential workshops where we would create stuff that we could bring home. So there's a little paper treasure chest from the treasure themed the weekend that we did, and there's another one for all sorts of different purposes. And here's a handful of acorns because those are so each one has the potential to be an oak tree, and it's all of that meaning that's in there. And on the other hand, it's a bunch of stuff. So here's a process that you can use, and I use this for decluttering all sorts of things, and it works for the spiritual stuff as well. And your suggestion, take a picture of it, is even better. So take the stuff that you are considering not keeping in your immediate field of view. And by the way, we're not going to throw anything away. We're not going to throw anything away now. So you take the stuff that you're ready to put into the retirement process. And you make a little photo shoot. Set up a table with a nice tablecloth, nice background. Put it all out there, honor it, respect it, take a picture of it. Then take all the stuff, put it in a box, seal the box, and label the outside of it. This is my spiritual stuff that was lovingly put into storage on July 21st, 2025. And put it in the garage, or put it under the table, or put it someplace. And you've always got the picture. You go back and look at the picture. And if something calls to you and says, I really need to get that little tchotchke, then you know what it is, you know which box it's in, you unseal it, you cross out the date when you seal the rest of the stuff back up again and put in the date that you sealed it back up again. And then you see what happens. Because that stuff is still part of your past, it's still part of your path. It's still part of the richness that brought you to where you are right now, but perhaps you don't need it anymore. What's the saying about, I used to have childish things and now I no longer need childish things? Maybe those are childish things. I don't know. I'm not going to put any judgment on them. But if you look at that box and it turns out that the date on it is from a year ago or 10 years ago, and you haven't unsealed the box, it's like, all right, there's stuff from 10 years ago in this box that I haven't needed for 10 years. So perhaps I could just move this box over to the recycling center. And this stuff will be every bit as much with me as it has been for the last 10 years because I can think about it, but I haven't been touching it. And go through that process. It can work. And not just as a discipline for decluttering the house, but as a reminder that we're on a growth path. That what was important in that box that's dated 2007 is still important, but it's not relevant anymore.
I think that's the key to deciding what you keep and what you don't. What is my purpose right now, where I am at this moment, because this is all I have. And also I'm always kind of peeping into where I'm going, because I have a desired reality, of course. And then looking at what's here, is this going to help me get there? Mm-hmm. Now, again, there's emotions all tied in that, but it depends on how much time you spend with each thing. And I'm not saying everything gets equal time, but I was sharing something today with someone, and they were saying that I did such and such in my past and I have so many regrets. And when I said this, well, that's way too much time. It's way too much time. You saw it, you know when it happened. You don't need to go back and revisit the negative energy around it. It's not going to help you where you are now. It's not going to help you where you're going. So I'm using a lot of whatever's, a grid or whatever you call sieve, to determine what gets to stay and what doesn't. And it's go. And I think that you give each of it, you use the term, I wrote this down, you use the term honor and respect each thing. And I like that, because it did happen. It was a part of your life. You honor that it happened, but then evaluate how far into your life do you cherish this thing, or you keep it with you. Mm-hmm. When my kids were teenagers, my house was always full of kids. And the ones that hung around the most for the longest time, I used to get these teddy bears, and I would dress the teddy bear like the kid. And that was, whatever kid. And if they didn't get to take it, I kept it. So when they came in the house, they felt like this is where they had something that belonged. They really felt belonged, like they belonged there. And a lot of them didn't have, really comfy homes. So they feel like you belong. And I still have some bears by high school. So my kids are quite grown now. So you can imagine I have bears. And what I usually do is, as I meet these young ones that are now adults, I give them their bear. Mm-hmm. And they just go all wacky over it. Yeah. But then but they're still, I got some bears that I need to get rid of. I don't know if I'm ever going to see these kids again. But it's little things like that, like that's not real all that serious, but it's what it meant. Is it going to help me where I'm going or hinder me? The honor of it is looking ahead. I get it. Yeah, happened. A bad marriage. It happened. I get that because I had one. So right. I'm divorced. I'm not looking back at that and regretting it. I already did all that.
Yeah. So, and of course, now it also puts you in the position where when you have a good marriage, you can appreciate it a little more, and you recognize it when it showed up. It's like, oh, this is what I had in mind.
Exactly. But that's the help. That's the looking at it from a healthy place, where I've already, but some people are at that place where they haven't understood that you value, honor, and respect the experience. You're not regretting that it happened because it was a part of your growth. I think you shared that. It's a part of what makes you who you are. But that's enough right there. Okay. Let's just don't go into the regret yak, because then now you're going to feel bad. Oh, I was really a jerk person. Well, yeah, probably you were. And so a lot of us were, but we're not that now. And we don't intend to be that in the future. Let's unpack that. And that's the hard unpacking. And I recognize it is hard, but it's a place to start, and that's the kind of unpacking I'm talking about. Yeah. And it's difficult, I think. Because, those memories had hope wrapped up in it. If you had a bad marriage, when you were getting to it, you had hope that it was going to become something. So when it didn't, you're not just getting rid of a jerk. All the dreams that you had are now gone.
Right.
And yes, you can create new ones, but on the way to that, it's hard. You got to, sometimes I use a harsher term. You got to take the trash out. That's, yeah, there's a point at which you have to use that too. But that's the unpacking that frees you to be okay where you are right now and to build new dreams without guilt. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's really difficult to see, especially when in the middle of a transition or a loss, that even though my life has been great up until now and this thing is happening and the parts that are great are going away, and now I have to do something different. When we embark on the newness, there's the possibility for, even though it's not the same, even though the stuff that we really liked isn't there anymore, there's a new possibility that wasn't there before either. There is something that could be happening now, which is as good as we can imagine and even better. So that stuff is possible. And it's way above my pay grade to tell somebody what the good stuff for them is going to be. I don't know.
But again, you use that word that meant a lot to me in the very beginning, and that's what new stuff is possible. It's hard. That word possible is really hard to wrap yourself around when you're coming from a past of pain and uncertainty. And even if it's not all there, like you're looking at a different way to pray, or you're looking at a different style of worship. Okay, can I do this? Is it going to be, you just, how do you honor where you've come from and say, I'm ready to go full? The idea of new possibilities, you have to have a sense of no fear of the ambiguity of life and say, okay, I'll give this a shot, because you're going into the unknown. I don't care how you frame it. There's one infinite possibility. There's one infinite creative power. I don't care how you say it. It's God. You're telling me to look at God a different way. Mm-hmm. There's new possibilities. To some people, that's scary. To others like me, hey, let's give it a shot, because, why not? But I guess that's personality. But it's a transition.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely it's a transition point. And as somebody gets into this new thought teaching and embraces practical prayer, the other spiritual practices tend to fall away. And I have people who are involved in my congregation who still love going to Catholic Mass, mm-hmm. because New Thought does not have a whole lot in the way of ritual. And our huge holiday tradition is the winter solstice. Which is not ours. That's just a thing that happens, and we have a little celebration. Same thing with Easter. You can celebrate Easter, but it's going to mean something different once you get into the New Thought teaching. And so we have people who are honoring and embracing the parts that they love about another tradition, and no longer having it mean as much as they thought it meant, or they gave it credence for in the past. So that's the transformation. That's the stuff that's getting put into the box perhaps with a date on it. Although those sorts of things we forget to put the date on. We just realize, that's been in a box for a long time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's take a break and continue this conversation about decluttering.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We're having a conversation about decluttering and spiritual decluttering, and what we can do to take the stuff that we've gathered up as we've moved along our path and love and honor and cherish and respect it, but not have it be the focal point of our next step. Because eventually we wind up being spiritual hoarders, and we spend all of our time making tunnels through the leftovers of our previous life. So I was thinking about the story you're telling about the bears. So how many bears do you have left? Do you figure?
Maybe 8.
Okay. Do you recall the last time you gave that to one of the now adults?
About 5 years ago.
Okay. And
I got to track them down on Facebook. Was it fun? Yeah, because the thing for me was to see the look on their face.
Right.
It was so much memory.
Yeah. So do you keep them around until that stops being interesting? If it's the sort of thing where you wait for them to show up at the house because they're coming by to visit your kid who happens to be in town, and you can then surprise them with, "Oh, here's your bear." If that's what you're waiting for, then put them all into a bag with the date on it. And, if it gets to be 10 years since you gave somebody a bear, it's like, okay, so long, bears, you've served your purpose. I'm taking you over to the to the Goodwill, and you can be bears for somebody else. And they'll wonder why you're wearing what you're wearing. Which is something else that's fun to think about. The spiritual decluttering that we're doing is, in a lot of ways, it's about clarity. When we've got clutter and things that are hooking our attention, whether they're things that have been very valuable or things that have been that incessant, like the little voices that keep on coming up over and over and over again, at some point they become unhelpful. Because they just form the background noise and keep us from being able to get clarity about what we're actually looking for or looking at. So in that sense, the decluttering can be very helpful. Did a meditation earlier or last week, and one of the people on the meditation who's on vacation has a summer house on a lake. And he said it was foggy. You can't see the other side of the lake. And it's like, well, that's the perfect metaphor about the cluttering and decluttering. I said, the other side of the lake is still there. And he says, well, yeah. And I said, and it's probably about like it was yesterday. And he says, yeah. And it's the fog, it's the clutter, it's the distraction that on the one hand keeps us from seeing what's there. On the other hand, it keeps us from being distracted by what's there. So perhaps there's a way of engaging with whatever it is that's surrounding us so that it can remind us to connect more deeply within instead of being a distraction and hooking our attention. Oh, remember this thing that happened all those years ago? And oh, I need to honor this, and letting our attention and our focus go to that. In some cases, having the fog, getting the detail out of our field of vision can be helpful.
100%. I agree with that. It's like I had a vision of a little lake that is close to here that I go to. Matter of fact, I'm going after this. But there is a fog, and you described the whole scene. There is so much to unpack and fix and whatever when you're making the transition from traditional religion to spirituality. There's a lot there. But let's just think of it as generically as moving or growing spiritually. One of the things about decluttering is the fear of letting go. Well, I need this again. Mm-hmm. And what'll happen if I don't have this, and whatever. And I thought, okay, so what is that called? That's called like a poverty mentality. You're afraid to let go because what if I don't have anything? Mm-hmm. And so again, here comes another heavy lift, but there is one God. And sometimes everything seems to go back to that point. There's one God, whether you it's packed up in this clutter that you've held all your life, or where you're going. There's that one God that's going to be wherever you are, because it's in you, or it is you, whatever, however you want to express it. That's the fear, So it's like you said in the beginning, there's so many little nuances in here. So what are you afraid of? You're afraid that you're being disloyal to your God. You're going to lose God. No. So it may take you a couple days to get past that.
Mm-hmm.
So the declutter, it can be really a frightening experience to go through. And I don't know that there's any other way around it aside from just the sheer desire to do it. And you take a deep breath and say, okay, I'll deal with what comes up next, I suppose.
Oh, that reminds me of a term that people don't use a lot, which is stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have a bunch of stuff, and it's our stuff, and we've accumulated all the stuff over the years because that's our stuff, then on the one hand, there's the declutter, let me get rid of this stuff, desire. And on the other hand, there's the stewardship of this is mine for a reason, and I've been taking care of it all these years for a reason, and I need to be deliberate. I was going to say mindful, but you don't have to be mindful. You have to be deliberate to say the need for this stuff has reached its end point, and I can now lovingly release it, and I'll still be okay. And if it turns out that I need that sort of thing again, I'm sure that that infinite creative power that created it in the first place will create another version of it for me now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've been getting all kinds of reminders about that sort of thing over the course of the last week, which I didn't think about until you brought this topic up. So my daughter just moved away, and we inherited her outdoor table, which was much nicer than my outdoor table. So we put the outdoor table on the curb, the sign on it said free, and, just willing to lovingly let it go. And my neighbor across the street now has the table at his house. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's in his perfect place. And I get to have no judgment or attachment to, how valuable the table is in his possession, because it's his table now.
Mm-hmm.
And it has served its purpose, and I have been a good steward of it, and I didn't need to throw it away or destroy it, because it turns out that there's somebody on the same block who now has a different use for that table. That's a mystery to me. The other thing that happened is I was cleaning out I don't have a workshop, I have a workbench in the basement. And I stash stuff there when it comes along. And we had a problem with the washing machine like 4 or 5 years ago. And they didn't have to just replace it. They had to replace it several times because it wasn't working properly. So I have a really nice set of hot and cold water hoses, with the armor braid and the metal on the outside of them. It's very nice. There's this very nice set of hoses that are currently attached to the washing machine. So I don't really need another set of them, but they're really nice. So they're the good ones. So there's that. Yeah. Do I want to take the perfectly useful ones that are on the washing machine off and do all the work to put in the slightly better ones that's not going to make any difference to my life? Do I leave these sitting here? And this doesn't really require that much thinking, but it's just an example of the sort of thinking, that we get to do. We took the opportunity to upgrade our TV set. One of the TVs died. The TV in the bedroom died. So we moved the one from the living room up to the bedroom. We got a new one. So now we got a new, bigger TV in the living room. And it's on the shelf on top of the VHS and DVD player. Well, it's been a long time since we've watched a DVD or a VHS on that particular device. But now it doesn't have a connector on it that's compatible with the current TV. The connector is on the TV in the bedroom. Okay? And I still have the collection of DVDs. And how relevant is that for my life moving forward? And I don't know. So there's all these questions about, at some point, does it become completely irrelevant? A tree in the neighborhood fell down. And so now I have a very clear view of the neighbor's house a few doors down. And they have one of those old school TV antennas on the roof. Ones with a motor that lets it aim the antenna in the correct place. It has been decades since TV stations broadcast on a frequency that can be picked up by those antennas. On behalf of my neighbor, it's time to surrender and let go of that. But it's not on my roof. I might need it. So the reminders keep coming along, and some of them are really easy, and some of them, get into that stewardship question about how am I serving myself and the world around me the best? Do I get rid of this thing and consider it junk? Do I hold on to it because I may need it at some point? Or is there a middle way?
Did you come up with an answer?
No, I'm giving you, there's three different possibilities there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Because, in terms of spirituality, it's a little easier because it's never ending. Our lives are ever unfolding. So you never actually get to, you declutter this and then there's something else to grow or something else, Yeah. But when you were talking about the antenna and the television and everything, I was thinking about, I have clothes, right? Not a lot. Now listen to this. Not a lot. Because my style is very simple. So the pandemic came and everything is changing and I'm thinking, am I going to need these or do I have to go with something else? But this is still my style. So maybe I should go. And what I used them for before the pandemic probably may not happen again because we're in a new normal.
Yep.
But maybe I better hold on to this. So it's like, you just got to take it. I know what's going to happen with me. And it's nothing deep and spiritual. I'm going to look, I'm going to say, I'm sick of looking at you. You're out.
Well, you do have the ability
usually
to do that.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes, but it'll take a while. But when I do, that's the day and it's done. And it depends on if it's a day that I could take it to the Goodwill. If not, it's going to the dumpster, but it's out of here. Mm-hmm. But our memories and traditions that we're letting go, I don't know. They may not be quite the same.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting point about that. And I think we're going to turn this into a prayer after the break, is that if there is something that is divinely ordained, if there's something the Spirit needs you to have and you put it down, if you leave it in the dumpster, Spirit will bring you another one. If Spirit needs you to have it, Spirit's not counting on you to pick it up.
I really appreciate you saying that. I do, really, because I believe that 100%. I just forgot. So thank you.
All right.
Yeah, right after this, I'm going to the closet.
There you go. And we're going to take a break. And right after that, we're going to do a prayer about the same thing. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We're talking about decluttering today and organizing our lives in such a way that we are supplied and provided with everything that's necessary and make room by getting rid of the stuff that's no longer necessary. And clutter and decluttering and keeping things and getting rid of things is an issue for a lot of people. So that's going to be the prayer today. And the prayer is not about having the courage to throw stuff out. The prayer is not going to be about strong-arming ourselves into the discipline or the willpower to go through the closet. The prayer instead is on release. And it's on releasing whatever's necessary to make room for what we really need. Because it is possible that the stuff, whether it's emotional stuff or physical stuff or stories that we're clinging to, are taking up space that could be used in a much more valuable way by something else. So in order to have room for that new stuff, we get to let go of some of the old stuff. And that's the decluttering process. And we don't need to declutter by getting angry at the things that are here now or that have led us to this point. We can do the decluttering simply by acknowledging that where we are now is exactly the perfect place. And what's next is not dependent on what has brought us here. Whatever brought us here, we're here. We can let go of the stuff that's been along the path, not lose the lessons, not lose the insight, not lose the insight and information. But the stuff can go. So as is comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes or go into a soft focus and take a deep breath out. Let yourself release whatever has been filling you. And then a deep breath in. Invite in something new. Feel yourself filled with that. That newness is important. And if you hold for a little while, you'll notice that it gets stale. And then it's time to let go again. So breathe out and once again release. And understand that this is a process. This is not the same one-time event. Another breath in and keep breathing however is comfortable for you. And allow your breathing to be a reminder that something new is always happening. Something new is always underway. Use your breathing as a reminder that as soon as you have a requirement for another breath of fresh air, as you breathe it in, the air has everything that's required. There's an infinite creative power, one divine presence, one love. We call it God or spirit or nature or the big happy coincidence that matches up the need that we have for whatever's in this breath of air and whatever it is that's in this breath of air to be the same, to fit, to be sufficient to the moment, to be everything that's required. And we can allow the moment, the experience of letting that breath go, knowing that it has served its purpose. We can be grateful for it and still release it and not need to have it for later. And that makes room for the next breath and the next breath and the next breath. And in the same way that we can go through the process of breathing without judgment about what happened in the previous breath, we can be in that process of opening to what's new, opening to what's next, and that same spirit of joy and enthusiastic eagerness. And I know that infinite creative power, that one divine presence that is sharing itself as all of its creation, is sharing itself as each one of us now. Everyone within the sound of my voice is a unique expression of that divine goodness, evolving and unfolding and expressing in our own way. And this next experience, this next moment, this next change, this next breath is the opportunity for the infinite to share itself with and as and for and through us in a new way. And good is unfolding. As we are provided with everything necessary with this next breath of life, the other pieces are fitting together in sweet perfection as well. Good and more good, pressed down and overflowing, filling each of us with that most harmonious and uplifting of experiences. This is how God's love unfolds. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the willingness of each one here to let go of what has served its purpose and open to what's new and what's next. And so with gratitude for all of this good, I speak this word and release it into that creative law that creates everything. And I know it is now creating this goodness. And so it is. So it is. Amen.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com,
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.